In today's tutorial, we're going to create a perfectly modeled and textured Minecraft character. To make the model and the textures perfect, we're going to use a technique that I haven't seen any YouTube tutorial doing by using a little bit of geometry nodes. So let's start off by deleting everything. Press X to delete. Let's then press numpad 1 to go into side view like this. Next thing we want to do is press Shift A and search for an image, reference image. The reference image that we want to use is this image. Alright. For this image, we're not going to do anything to it yet. Let's first import our first object. So let's press Shift A, Mesh, Cube. How would you have guessed? For this cube, we're going to match it up with the image, or we're going to match up the image with the cube. So let's click on the image and let's scale it up like this. You hold down Control, you can perfectly do it like that. Move it down, that's good. You can scale it down a little bit more, maybe move it a little bit. It doesn't need to be that perfect, but the more perfect you can make this, the better it is. Okay, let's go into edit mode for the cube. What we actually want to do here is we want to subdivide the cube so that it has the same amount of faces as Steve has for the amount of pixels that he has, so that later in the texturing it will be as easy as possible to texture this. To do this, let's count the amount of pixels that Steve has, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pixels. So we want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loop cuts. To subdivide the loop or the cube, let's press right click and do subdivide, and we want to do 7 subdivisions so that we have perfectly the same amount of faces as there are pixels. Okay, let's do the body. Let's go out of edit mode. Let's press Shift A and we want to insert another cube. This cube, we're going to press G and Z, and if you hold down Control, you can match it perfectly with the other cube. Now if you go into edit mode for this cube and press Alt Z, we can go into transparency mode. Let's select this bottom part and let's press G and Z and move it down with Control. Like this. Let's add in the loop cuts. We know from the head that we need to have 7 vertical loop cuts. So let's press Ctrl R and type in 7. Left click, right click. For the horizontal vertices, we need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 pixels are there on the vertical one, so we need 11 loop cuts. So press Ctrl R and type in 11, and we have this. Now, if you want to be sure that your faces are perfectly rectangles, what you can do is you can measure, or you can see the measurements of each edge. To do this, you can go over here into overlays and turn on edge length. And then you will see each length is 0.25 meters, which is perfect for us. If we take a look at the side, then we see it's way too thick. Now, the thickness of the body is the same in pixels. It is the same as the thickness of the arm. So as we can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels. So we need to add in Ctrl R 3 loop cuts on the side. Actually, it's giving me a lot of anxiety, all these numbers, so I'm going to turn it off for now. If we need it again, we will turn it on. Okay, go into side view now that we have those 3 loop cuts, and if you press S and Y and hold down Control, you can make it perfect squares. Let's test if it's perfect squares. Yes, it is. Nice. For the arms, let's go out of edit mode and press Shift A and do a cube, and let's press numpad 1 to go into side view. Let's press G and right click or Control to put it over here. Alt Z so that we can see it better. We kind of want that almost the half of it is over here. I can see that our model is getting a little bit bigger than the reference. Don't worry about that. It's just as a reference to see how many pixels we need, and for the beginning, for example. Let's go into edit mode for this cube and let's press S and X and scale this with control on the x-axis, and then we see we can match it up perfectly. Now let's move this part down, press G and Z and move it down so that it perfectly matches up with this part. Now let's take the bottom part and press G and Z and hold down control to move that down as well. For this part we need to have 3 loop cuts on all sides, so press Ctrl R, 1, 2, 3, left click, right click to put them perfectly centered. Let's do the same over here, Ctrl R, left click, right click, put them perfectly centered. Let's make it thinner, just like we did before with the body. So select everything with A, press S and Y and hold down Ctrl to put them at the same size as the body. We know from the body that the amount of horizontal loop cuts is going to be 11. So press Ctrl R and type in 11. Left click, right click to put them perfectly centered. The other arm, we're not going to create that one yet. After we textured the right arm, we're going to duplicate that to the other side so that we can save some time. But what we can do is we can duplicate this arm now and put it with Control, put it over here so that it's a leg, because it's the same size. We don't have to worry about that the leg is too big or something, because it isn't. As long as the amount of pixels is the same as on the reference image, then we're good. Again, I'm not going to make this leg, only after we have done the texturing of this leg. Let's actually do the texturing now. So let's go into Material Preview over here. And the way we're going to texture this is with some techniques with the UV map. I've got this image from the internet, link in the description below to the link with a lot of Minecraft textures. And we're going to match the UV map of each object according to which part of the body is where on the image. Let's open up the shader editor by going over here and press right click and do a vertical split so that you can split your screen in half. From this screen, let's make it the shader editor, and let's actually first texture the head. And by the way, you can remove the reference image, we don't need it anymore. Let's click on the head and let's click on new to insert a new material. Let's insert an image texture, so Shift A, search for image texture. The image texture that we want to open up is that image that I showed you before. You connect color to base color, then we can see it looks like this. This looks horrible. So let's actually change the UV map of this head to make it match up with the image more. Let's split this screen in half again. Let's press right click over here and do a horizontal split. And then like that. And let's make this part the UV editor. Go into edit mode for the cube. And now the fact that we created the loop cuts comes into play. It's going to be very handy. We can go into side view, numpad 1, and press 3 to go into face select mode. You select the whole front face, you see it's over here. We can simply select everything with A in the UV map and move it to here. And then scale it and move it and scale it. You don't have to match it up perfectly. You don't have to do that, because later we will, with a technique in geometry nodes, we will perfectly make it straight pixels. It's going to be pretty cool. We see that it's 90 degrees rotated, so let's take this UV map and press R and press 90, and if it turns out to be like upside down, press minus after that. Let's do that for every single side. So let's press numpad 1 or numpad 3 and take this side, and let's see where it is. It's over here, and that part is this side. So let's move it to here, scale it down like this, scale it up, and again, it doesn't need to be perfect, it's all good. Okay, I see this part is rotated 90 degrees as well, so R90 and then minus. I will do the other parts as well. I will speed it up a little bit, and you can do it on your screen as well. Yes, we've done it. We're not going to texture the other parts yet, because we first want to make the Steve part. We first want to make that perfectly pixels. You see that they are now kind of fading over each other and it looks pretty ugly. So let's fix that, and we're going to fix that with geometry nodes. So let's get into geometry nodes. Let's make this geometry nodes by going over here, geometry node editor. Click on the head and make it a new geometry nodes. And name this geometry node something like Minecraft Steve Geo nodes, something like that. We only need 2 nodes for this to work, to create this perfectly pixels. Shift A, the first thing we want to do is a named attribute. This named attribute is going to be our UV map. So we're going to edit our UV map inside of geometry nodes. The name of this, let's make it the UV map. And to edit this UV map, we want to work with a store named attribute node and put that between the group input and the group output. Let's set this from float to vector, since we're working with vector data. And let's set it from point to face corner. Now, this is wrong, but later I will show you what we have to fix for this. Or what this does, actually. Okay. Let's set this attribute output to the value over here. And to actually update our UV map, let's name this, let's put the UV map name in the name over here. Then we see texture gone. That's because our UV map or our object is not using our UV map yet or anymore. Because when you're working or when you're editing your UV map in geometry nodes, you always have to do this in the textures. So you always have to put this UV map in the shader editor. Shift A and search for attribute node in the shader editor. Put the name of the UV map in the name over here and put vector to vector. Then we have it back. Good. But we see we still have the ugly pixelated things. If you want to have this perfect, we kind of want that each face becomes the perfect color that is in the middle of the face. So this one is going to be purple, this one is going to be, how do you say this, brown, this one darker brown, something like that. To do this, change the face corner over here to face, and then you get perfectly distributed with sharp edges pixels. Now we want to do the same technique on these other body parts, and we're going to do this in a very easy way, very fast. What we want to do first is copy this texture to the other objects. We can do that by clicking on the objects, then shift click on the part that already has the texture, go into the material properties, and over here you can click copy material to select it. As you can see, the textures on these objects don't look good yet, and that's because of the UV map of these. So again, we will do the same technique as we did with the head. We will match the UV map of these objects with the corresponding part in the image. However, I would recommend a different technique in this. The technique in this is going to be, for example, for this one, let's say we want to map this part out, and I will actually go into the UV editor. Then you see it looks like this, and it's not the perfectly same shape as this part. What you can easily do to fix this is select that part, press U to create a new UV map, and do project from view. And then you have the perfect same shape as over here, and you can match it up with this part of the object. Oh, just like that, just like that. And that's what you want to do for each side, and then also for the arm and the leg. So now I will speed it up. I will do this myself, and you can do it on your screen as well. Alright, I've done it. Okay, but what we have not done yet is, if you take a look, these are not perfectly pixelated yet. That's because these other objects don't have the geometry nodes that the head has. So what we want to do is we want to copy those geometry nodes to the other objects as well. So click on the objects, then shift click on the head, go into the modifiers, then we see we have a geometry node modifier over here. Click over here and click on copy to select it. Boom. And now they have the perfectly pixelated parts. Now the last thing that we have to do is we have to take this arm and press Shift D to duplicate it, move it on the X-axis, hold down Control, put it perfectly over here, take the leg, Shift D to duplicate it, press X and hold down Control to put it over here. And then we have our perfect Minecraft character with perfectly pixelated textures. So there you have it. Hope you learned something new today. There will be a part 2 of this video coming up in which we will rig and animate the character. So be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss that.